Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about how to DIY your strength training for runners. So I've talked in previous Facebook Lives and in my blogs about all the benefits of strength training for runners. So I'll just recap that quickly here, but what we're looking at is roughly a 60% injury risk reduction, right, for runners who are prone to about 20 to 80% chance of injury in any given year. So a 60% injury risk reduction is pretty massive. And then the other thing we're looking at with the addition of regular strength training is a 5 to 8% improvement in running performance by improving our running economy. So definitely worth paying attention to. And if you're not doing any strength training at the minute, I would certainly encourage you to have a read of my blog that I've linked up above here, and the blogs that I've linked in that, and that talk about all these benefits in a little bit more detail. But what I want to talk about today is how to program your own strength training if you're already a little bit familiar with strength training. So if you're not doing any strength training at the minute, like I said, I've linked to a couple of my blogs where I've talked about just some very simple programs. So I've got the Runner's Bare Bones program, which is really simple, just 2 exercises to do, get you started on some strength training. And then I've talked about how to use a kettlebell for strength training again, and provided a very simple program, all linked in the article above. But what I'm going to talk about today is how you might go about structuring your own strength training if you're already doing a bit and you want to kind of know what to include and how to make your time in the gym or your time doing strength training as effective as it could possibly be. So if you're a runner like me, then you don't want to spend a lot of time in the gym, okay? So if you're we've all kind of grown up with strength training being, okay, first I'll do my bicep curls for my biceps, and then I'll do my tricep extensions for my triceps, and then I'll do some lateral raises for my shoulders, and then I'll do some bench press for my chest, and then I'll do some sit-ups for my stomach, and then I'll do some quads curl for my quads, and it just like takes forever, right? So you have to do every single exercise, every single muscle in the body one at a time, and you spend half your life in a gym, and that can be very off-putting, right, if you're not into strength training. So how can we make it simpler? A couple of years ago, I came across a guy called Dan John on the internet, and he's really great. He's got this kind of approach that's much more simplistic than that, and he talks about 5 fundamental movements. And basically what happens is if you strengthen these 5 fundamental movements, which are basically the building blocks of all human movement, then you will strengthen all aspects of human sports performance, and you don't have to worry about individual muscles because they'll just be kind of taken care of when you're doing these movements. So what are the 5 movements, right? The 5 movements are: number 1, carry; number 2, hinge; number 3, squat; number 4, pull; number 5, push. Okay, so very simple. A carry is basically picking up something heavy and walking or running with it, okay? So that's a strength training exercise for the movement of gait, which is this reciprocal movement of striding one foot forwards while the opposite arm goes backwards and then repeating on the other side. So that's one fundamental movement. And then the hinge movement, I've got videos of all of these in the blog. The hinge movement is where we bend at the hips and fold in half, but we keep the back straight. Okay, that's a hinge movement. It's similar to, but not exactly the same as the third movement, which is a squat. And we all know what a squat is, and that's basically what we do when we squat down next to something to pick it up, or we squat down to sit into a chair, or we stand up out of our bed. These are all squatting pattern movements. The difference between a hinge and a squat is the amount of knee bend that's involved. So the hinge doesn't have much knee bend, and the squat has a maximum knee bend. And I talk about that in the blog with the videos in a little more detail. And then the upper body movements is just pushing something away, and we can push it, horizontally, or we can push it vertically, or pulling something towards you. Is the 4th movement is pull, the 5th movement is push. So either pushing something away horizontally or vertically, or pulling something towards us horizontally or vertically. And we always try and make it pretty heavy. So if we're going to design a strength training program, all we need to do is make sure that we hit the 5 movements once a week, at least once a week. And then we can use that to make sure that we're getting every part of the human movement sort of system strengthened. And if you're going to think about how heavy do you want to go, it really depends, how complicated you want to be. Do you want to go more for endurance or more for power or more for pure strength? But I mean, I don't really want to get into all of that right now. So I can say what's going to benefit runners the most likely, if you're not doing too much so that's not too comprehensive, is just go 3 sets of 8, right? So 3 sets of 8 of something that's so heavy that you can't really do 10 or 11, so really quite heavy. So say you're going to do the second movement, the hinge, right? Then you would do something like a deadlift, and you would only do a weight that you could just about do 8 of, but you could complete all 3 sets with good form, but you couldn't really do 3 sets of 10. So it's going to be pretty heavy, right? So you pick one exercise from each of the 5 movements, you do 3 sets of 8, and then you do it once or twice a week, and then that's it. It's nice and simple. The nice thing about this is these 5 movements, right? You can have different exercises in each one, so you can constantly be mixing up your program and making things more interesting. So you could change it every few weeks and do a new program for a few weeks. So I'll give you some examples. So this is all sort of, there's videos in the blog post again, but we've got the first movement, that's carry, right? We could do a farmer's carry, which is where we get 2 dumbbells that are really heavy and walk with them for a minute, put them down and rest for a minute, walk with them again for a minute, and then do it a third time. We could do like a suitcase carry, which is where we just have the dumbbell on one side that's trying to pull us over. We could do, it's like a sled drag where you grab hold of the sled at the gym and pull it quickly, or you could push it away from you, or you could do like a lunge walk, which is a bit of a mixture of a gait and a squat pattern. So that's the first pattern of carry. And then we've got, what's next? The hinge, I think. So the hinge, the most well-known hinge movement is the deadlift, right? So if you've seen the deadlift, that's the one they do in like powerlifting competitions where they bend forwards from the hips, and they lift up something really heavy. And then you've got like the Romanian deadlift with your legs a little bit more straight. You've got the single leg deadlift, you've got kettlebell swings, cable pull-throughs and hip thrusts, right? These are all variations on the hinge movement. And you could choose different ones and just drop one into your strength training program. And then if you get a bit bored of it, in a few weeks, you switch out for one of the other ones. Just make sure that you get that one out of that same hinge group, right? And then pick one out of the squat group. So some examples of the squat would be, like a back squat where you put the bar on your back and then you do some squats. Or there's like a front squat where you've got it in the front rack position. There's a goblet squat where you hold like a kettlebell or a dumbbell close to your chest and squat down. A split squat is like a one-legged squat or a single leg squat, and then a step up, that's a form of squatting. A lunge is a form of single leg squatting. So that would take care of the squat, picking one of those exercises. And then you've got the pull. So the most simple one is like a pull-up, or you've got like a horizontal row where you pull something towards you. Bent over row, those lawnmower things where you sort of see people leaning on the bench and kind of pulling something like a dumbbell up and down. So these are all pulling movements, just anything when you're pulling something heavy towards you, the lat pull machine at the gym, right? And then push, right? Pushing something heavy away from you. So you got like a bench press would be like an example of a horizontal push, or they call it a military press or a shoulder press, where you push a dumbbell or barbell up in the air. Chest flies, push-ups, right? These are all examples of pushing movements. So there's a bunch of different movements you could choose. And then, like I said, if you want to design your own strength training program, this 5 fundamental movement program template approach is a really good way to do it, right? You do 3 sets of 8, and you just pick one exercise out of each bucket, and you do it once a week. If you want to do it twice a week, great. You could do one exercise out of each group once a week, and then another the second time, right, to mix it up. And then you can just kind of use your imagination and keep changing it up. So that's a way to make your strength training a little bit more interesting and a little bit more comprehensive, just by using this 5 fundamental movement approach. And I've been doing this for a few years now. This is kind of how I do my strength training. I just make sure I hit those 5 movements. I do something for a few months, and when I get bored, I mix it out for different exercises, but I still use that same approach, because then I know I'm strengthening all aspects of human performance, and I don't have to worry about individual muscle groups. So I don't have to do the bicep curl, then the tricep extension, then the shoulder lateral raise, then the bench, right? I can just do the movements, and I know I'm going to get all of my movements and my muscles stronger just by making sure I include at least one exercise from each of the 5 buckets. So, like I said, it's in the blog that's linked just above in the description. It's got some videos of me doing some examples of each movement, and then it's got the 5 buckets with some examples from each one. So go away and have a try. If you're not already doing some strength training, just pick one exercise from the each from the 5 groups. Pick a weight that's heavy, but you can only do about 3 sets of 8, and start there. And then when you get bored, mix it up. So, sorry I'm a bit late on my Facebook Live today. We've been away in Kingston for the weekend, and I was on my down week, so it was it was only supposed to be 19k, but I only did 10. I was having a very restful weekend. I thought that would serve me better actually, to take it a bit easy today. So yeah, it's been a very relaxing weekend, but I'll be back on it next week with the long run, and I hope you guys all had a great weekend, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.